Hey, brother, I got to document. Brother, I got to document the family. The family looking good. There you go. There you go. Islam, sis, Islam.
It's a new day
I'm
for
doing
the
well.
Moors, oh yeah. It's a new day for the Moors. Come on. It's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah. It's a new day for the Moors. Y'all made me do it, I ain't wanna do it. Try to work with y'all when I was going through it. I said hit the streets, and wanna hit the streets, you wanna stay in the temple. Same speech, same talk, same bark, no bite. Well, alright, I'm to Hopkins-Bey and I'ma handle that. My prophet spoke to me, he said handle that. Now I'm front and center, front line. Look at y'all, wanting mine, but it ain't mine, it's God's plan, a law plan. Oh man, 2016, all you gonna see is Prophet Noble, Drew Ali, old Moors, step aside, 34, come on, let's ride, hey! It's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah. It's a new day for the Moors. Philly, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, get in the court. Hey, it's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah. It's a new day for the Moors. Kansas City, St. Louis, Detroit, get in the court. We been visited by a prophet of God, and you mean to tell me we can't go hard? I'm a more of old, the one who rode the elephants over the Alps in the cold. Even with the Spain, rearranged the terrain, even try to civilize Cain. Now cypher 2016, I'ma show you what this mean. My tassel roll 360. Do you really think you can tell me what to do and say? Do you know I look up the Foreman-Bey? I roll with the prophet, I'm a prophet more. Follow the prophets, so I profit more. Stop it more. I'm holding the world and make me drop it more. Now drop it more. It's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah.
Check. We here live today at the Moorish American Remembrance Day here on Market Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is the place where our freedom was taken. This is the place where our rights was taken. This is the place where they legitimized slavery. So in this day, we like to remember. We like to remember this so we don't get lost as to where we're at, so we can also build on where we need to go. With that being said, let me call my big brother over here. You know who he is, Brother Sharif. Brother Sharif! yeah, we're gonna call my big brother over here. You know, I always gotta call my big brother over here. They get mad at me because I keep calling my big brother. Yes, sir. So I'm gonna call him more. So, Brother Sharif, we here today at Moorish American Remembrance Day. Yes, can you explain to the Moorish world? Yes, sir. It's long. Mufti on deck. Y'all see that? Yes, Mufti on deck. Yes, anyway, I want my brother to explain what we're doing here today at the Moorish American Remembrance Day here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, my brother.
Absolutely, Islam. First, I want to rise and give praise to Allah. I want to give honors to his prophet, the last prophet in these days and times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I want to give honors to the Moorish Science Temple of America. I want to give honors to all of those who aid and assist in the uplifting of fallen humanity. Well, see, Moorish American Remembrance Day is an actual Moorish American holiday recognized by the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What it does is it commemorates our never forget, right? Our Jewish brothers and sisters have a never forget, right? From World War II, so do we. Ours was in 1774, right downtown Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where we lost our cultural heritage and lost our national identity, right down here in front of Independence Hall. So Moorish American Remembrance Day is the day that we remember that. It's the day that we say never again. It's the day that we don't forget. You understand? When we lost our cultural and national identity and were relegated or were confined to the culturally ambiguous labels of Negro, Black, Colored, Ethiopian, African American. None of these names tell anything about our heritage or our cultural heritage. So that's why this day is important for us, bro.
Let me ask you a question. Would this day be considered as a day to be proud as a Moorish American? Would it be a day of thumbing your nose at the powers that be? What exactly is this day saying to us as it relates what we're saying to the public?
It says a number of things. I mean, it's a solemn day in the sense that we remember, we're remembering, a very hurtful time in history for us. But it's also very hopeful on a number of levels. One, because when you're in a situation like our people, we're in a silent weapon in a quiet war, meaning we don't know how we got in the situation we got in. Moorish American Remembrance Day puts its finger on the actual day, time, and place where we fell and where we lost our national identity. So when you don't have a point of reference, you don't have a way of getting out of the situation. So that's why this is a hopeful day, but also, too, the mere fact that you have Moorish Americans who know their national identity, they know their nationality, they know their divine creed, they're in their traditional garb, right? On the spot where it actually went down is on its face evidence that we were visited by a prophet. Plain and simple, because if it wasn't for that, we'd be in the same condition as many of our brothers and sisters are today.
Excellent. And I got one last question, my brother. As I look out into the public and I see a lot of our brothers and sisters who still conform to the term black, still conform to the terms Afro-American, African-American, what is a way that we can get this through to our brothers and sisters that we deserve a day to set aside to understand the particulars and the specifics of how we begin to get in this situation that we find ourselves? How can we try to get it through to them? And I'll close with that.
Well, that's a huge question, bro. That's a big question. But on the simple note, it's as simple as like what a union organizer does. Basically what a union organizer does, he organizes a group of people and say, this is what we don't have. Then he points at others and says, this is what they do have. Yes. Then he says, this is how we can obtain what we don't have and what they have. The number one thing that we don't have as a people here in America largely is knowledge and remembrance of our cultural heritage. What were you called? What nation were you connected to before you were labeled Negro, black, and colored? And we've done very well with what we have. We've done very well with what we have, but that's not enough. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. And with that, we're going to close. And I just wanted to ask that question due to the fact that this is Moorish American Remembrance Day here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we know that all of these, my brother said this the other day, and they was asking him about the Nat Turner movie. And my brother, Tunica Ill, said, peace to my brother Tunica Ill, he said, man, I done had my fill on slave movies. See, we continue to remember the things that really put us below a worm as it relates to how we were being treated. But now we have a specific date, we have a specific place where this all began and where we can look at and say, you know what? Never again. Whereas the Jewish people study and examine the Holocaust, we are here to examine, to study, and to bring into remembrance of what took place. So with that being said, I want y'all to think about it, study, and see if you can bring into remembrance. A mastermind trace itself back, and thus they know. See if you can bring it to remembrance and not let this happen again. Some people.
It's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah.
Praise to Almighty God Allah.
For the Moors.
I extend honor to His holy divine Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I give honors to all of the wonderful works that he has brought unto us. Islam, Moors? Islam. Now, we're going to put into perspective 1774 and talk about the origin of slavery. Islam, Moors? Islam. Again, as I stated before, and I want us to keep this in the forefront of our minds, that disunity is a legacy of not honoring the creed and principles of our forefathers. Islam, Moors. Islam. As we all well know, the Moors ruled the Iberian Peninsula for over 700 years. It was the Moors who brought Europe out of the Dark Ages. It was the Moors who brought civilization to the West. Islam, Moors. Islam. But we need to think about, if we did all of these great things, what happened? Well, what happened was we started a lot of infighting. Yep. We broke up the Iberian Peninsula into kingdoms. Everyone saying, I'm the Sultan of Cordova. I'm the Sultan of Seville. I'm the Sultan of Valencia. Instead of uniting our resources, we were fighting each other. And while we were busy fighting each other, demonstrating division, the European was coming together. So by 1474, Isabel and Ferdinand was uniting the houses of Aragon and Castile. 4 years later was the Spanish Inquisition. And we need to realize the Spanish Inquisition was aimed at the Moors. Also, the Crusades was aimed at removing the Moors from Spain. Islam Moors. Islam. So going to the origin of slavery, we can trace that back to the 15th century, around the time of 1441, whereas Portuguese slaveholders went into Morocco, captured a brother and a sister, contacted who was known as Prince Henry the Navigator, and he got very excited about slavery. So Henry, the so-called navigator, contacted Pope Eugene IV. And Pope Eugene IV handed down what is known as a papal bull. Two primary papal bulls, 1435, Sidic Dudem, and also 1442, Ilias Qui. And he said that slavery was a part of the Crusades. Enslaving Moorish Muslims was a part of the Crusades. Islam Moors. Islam. And from that point on, you had a lot of wars. You had the Sultan of Morocco, who would actually wage wars against the Portuguese and try to drive the Portuguese from the shores of Morocco. So what the Pope did was basically establish an international legitimacy for enslaving the Moors. And you know what was a major part of slavery? Taking the name Moorish or Moors from our people and replacing it with Negro, because they understood the impact that our name, the nobility that was connected to our name, the prestige that was connected to the name Moor, so they replaced it with Negro. Islam Moors. We need to realize our nationality is very important. And anyone who tells you that nationality is not important, well, your response in return should be, well, if it's not important, why they take it from us? It's not more. Our names are very important because scientifically, names carry vibrations. And the ancient Moorish Dogon people of Mali understood the power of Nomo, which is the power of the spoken word. Allah, to show Adam's superiority over the angels, what did he do but teach him the names of things? For the nature of things are condensed in their names. Islam Moors. So our nationality is very, very important. And the European understood the power of the name Moorish, which is why when he enslaved us, he took the name Moorish from us, start calling us Negroes. Start calling us Morisco. All right, be careful with these terms. Morisco, it literally means little more or diminutive Moor, which is equivalent to calling a grown man boy. Islam Moors. But our ancient name is Moors. The word Moor, it implies original man. So we can trace slavery all the way back to when the Moors ruled the Iberian Peninsula, starting with the Portuguese, then the Dutch, then the French, then the British. And the British Parliament declared slavery out in the year 1772. And we're putting this in perspective so we can understand why 1774, why that date is important, and why our nationality was taken away in the year of 1774. So with that, I'm going to call forth Chief R. Hopkins-Bey to explain what happened in 1774 so we can see why our nationality was taken away in the year of 1774. He's going to explain 1772. Islam? Islam. Islam.
Islam. Islam. I rise to give all praises to Allah and honor to his prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I give honor to my father and my mother, Brother R. Hopkins-Bey and Sister S. Hopkins-Bey. I give honor to each and every one of you. Islam. Islam. 1774 is why we're here, right? To commemorate when our nationality was stripped from us. But something preceded that. Right. Because why did it have to happen in 1774? Right. Now, many people get it mixed up and think, well, Are you saying slavery started in 1774?
No.
No, it's not what I'm saying. But right here in Carpenter's Hall in 1774 is where the pen was used to write you out of history as far as taking your nationality from you.
That's right.
Because you cannot be considered a human, a person, without a nationality.
That's right. That's right.
So many people think that this country decided to become a country because they was fed up with taxation, with no representation, and the Boston Tea Party, they were finally fed up. But when you do the research yourself, you will find there was a landmark case in 1772 in Britain. This case was it was called the Somerset case. Somerset was a slave. His master was named Stuart. And he took that slave back to Great Britain. And the slave Somerset used that chance he had and escaped his master. So he was found, rounded up, and the master decided to ship him off to Jamaica to be resold. But during the time that Somerset was in Great Britain, he had sympathizers to plead with his cause. So using law, there was a writ of habeas corpus that said, stop. You can't just take him and ship him somewhere else and sell him. It's like, why? He's a slave. Great Britain says, yes, he's a slave. They consider slaves a servant that had limited rights. Over here in the colonies, they didn't want slaves to have any rights as a citizen. So in order to do that, they looked at this case to see, well, how is Great Britain going to rule? Because these 13 colonies was under Great Britain. So whatever happens in Great Britain can come right across the water because these are colonists of Britain. So this case went on, presided by Lord Mansfield, and he determined that you cannot take him and resell him. In fact, because he's on British soil, they considered there was a saying that if you breathe free air, you can't be enslaved. But that goes back longer than that case, but it was still used to sum up that case. And the point being was he was set free. And the landmark case was like, wait a minute. If that gets over here and we get our lawyers to try cases like that here, we could lose our greatest asset as far as building this country. And not even looking at building this country, because again, these are 13 colonies. So that was the breaking point. Now the Boston Tea Party. They said, we have to do something that will make them not be considered servants, but to make them be considered property. Chattel property. They weren't considered chattel property in what they call the motherland in Great Britain. That's how that ruling was able to award his freedom. So here, First Continental Congress, 1774, that's when they took Negro, black, colored, and yes, even African. People want to say, well, African isn't a slave term because that's a legitimate continent. But when you call someone an African, you are in effect stripping their nationality because there's many nations in Africa. So if you see a case like the Dred Scott decision, when they say descendants of Africans, that's just the same as a slave term. And even our people like to say, because We don't want to separate ourselves from our brothers and sisters. But we cannot identify with being an African because there's many nations in Africa. And to be a human, to be a citizen in any country on the face of this earth, you have to have a nationality.
Right.
Not name a continent with a bunch of nationalities.
That's right.
You know, I see a lot of times, you see like the Kente cult, and they'll say, oh, that's African wear. But how would you feel if somebody took a traditional garb of Canada and said, this is the garb of North America? Americans will be outraged. That's not our garb. So you can't classify a people by a continent. It's the nation that they belong to.
That's right, Moore.
So that breaking point was the point that made them decide we have to break away from Britain. We have to form our own country. And that's why 1774, those terms were considered marks.
Right.
And a lot of our people get this mixed up because in 1779, they were actual names, not just marks. Marks is the beginning. Everything is done in steps. So 1774, the marks were put upon us. 1779, they were actual names, law. But it started here, First Continental Congress.
Right.
And if you wonder, well, how can they have the secret meeting without the mother country knowing? Well, they didn't go advertise, we are having the First Continental Congress. They did it under the context of calling it an Oddfellows Convention because this was done in secret. But the purpose was to actually write our nation out of history. No more Moors. Now you're Negroes. Now you're blacks. Now you're colors. Now you're Africans. And there were others. Just because those were named, you had coons. You had all kind of names. But these names were ones that actually became law to strip you of your nationality, to strip you of your identity, to strip you of your culture, to strip you of your religion. All that was done in one fell swoop by taking your nationality away. So you can't have someone say, why do I need a nationality? Without a nationality, how does religion get passed down from generation to generation? How does your culture get passed down from generation to generation without nationalists? Right. So it's very, very important. And anybody that thinks it's not, it's usually for two reasons. One, they have one already and take it for granted. And the other reason is because they never had one, can never remember having one, so they don't know the difference of why to have one and why not.
Wow.
But if they only knew, this is the answer to all the atrocities that are happening to our people today.
That's right.
People want to say Black Lives Matter.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, it
Black
doesn't.
lives don't matter. Because a man cannot be a color.
Cannot be a color.
So, I mean, and then we get Moors that start studying and find out that at one time, you know, white was considered a citizen. They'll even call you white, and they'll put, well, I'm white. Prophet Noble Drew Ali told us that you can't be a color. So you can't be white either. That is a slave term as well. Because if the slave master is going to make up a term for you and define what that term is, he had to make up one for himself to define all the good and wonderful things. You hear?
Wow. That's right, Moore.
You can tell a little white lie. That sounds like, oh, that's not bad. But you could be the black sheep of the family. You can be black males. You can be black balls. It's like black has all the negativity attached to it. And white has all positive things attached to it. But let it go.
That's right.
People cannot be colors. So when you hear people say, Oh, I'm being hated for the color of my skin. No, you're not. You're being hated because you identify with slave terms.
That's right.
And slaves have no rights.
No rights.
That was by design.
By design.
So in 1865, when slavery ended, guess what? Negro, black, colored, African, all of those terms were supposed to end as well.
Right.
And then, lastly, before I wrap it up, I don't want to be too long, is the fact that we have so many people that read a book, they go online, they find out the history of the Moors, and then they stand up and say, I'm a Moor. That's not enough.
Islam.
Prophet Noble Drew Ali said you have to join the Moorish Science Temple of America. And you have to proclaim your nationality with us. You can't do it alongside the temple, next to the temple, in conjunction with the temple. You have to be in the temple.
That's right.
There was a process that took your nationality away, and there's a process in which you get it back. With that, I say peace.
Praise Allah. Islam. On September the 5th, 1774, the Moors were a divided and defeated nation here in North America. On that date, 12 European colonies met here in this building, known as Carpenter's Hall. It was a Masonic convention. The meeting or convention was originally called the Odd Fellows Convention. The popular name of this convention, according to European history books, became known as the First Continental Congress. It must be known that 12 colonies that met here were the actual European nations. In 1774, there was no United States of America. There were 13 separate colonies, each separately chartered and governed. Now, how do you get European nations from 13 colonies? Each colony was composed of European nations under British rule. The state in which we're currently in, Pennsylvania, was composed of European nations such as the Dutch, the Germans, the Swedes, etc. The state of New York was initially called New Netherland. That colony was renamed New York after the Duke of York, the future King James II of England. These European nations or colonies convened here in 1774. The First Continental Congress met here between the dates of September 5th and October the 26th, 1774, with all representatives of the colonies attending except for Georgia. The representatives included Samuel Adams and John Adams of Massachusetts, George Washington, Patrick Henry of Virginia, famous for saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." At the meeting of the First Continental Congress, Peyton Randolph was elected president, was actually served as chairman. One of the reasons why the colonies met was to protest the intolerable acts. They attempted to define America's rights, place limits on parliamentary power, and also agree on legitimizing the inhumane institution of slavery. The two main documents which came out of the meeting of the First Continental Congress was the Declaration and Resolves of the First Continental Congress, which was passed today, October the 14th, 1774. And also the Articles of Association, which was passed October 20th, 1774. At this very meeting, the issue of the justification of the enslavement of Moorish inhabitants of this land was discussed and debated. The 12 colonies agreed to strip the Moors of their nationality and birthrights. This was an act of European psychology. The European colonists gave the Moorish population the slave marks of Negro, Black, Colored, Ethiopia, etc. And the European colonists defined these slave marks as something inferior to the name white. The European colonies defined white as a color of purity and defined black as representing everything evil. White and black was also used as legal statuses. White meant that you were a citizen or a person, and black meant you were not a citizen, or rather 3/5 of a person. When the Moorish population accepted the inferior slave marks of Negro, Black, and Colored, the Moorish inhabitants cut themselves off from the illustrious history of their forefathers, who were the founders of the first civilization of the old world. It must be made known Black is an adjective, a descriptive word, and not a noun. A noun is a person, place, or thing that for a person cannot be black. Black is defined as gloomy, pessimistic, such as a black future, sullen or hostile, such as black words, harmful, evil, or wicked, such as a black heart, indicating censure or disgrace, such as a black mark on a person's record, marked by disaster or misfortune, such as black areas of drought. And also, interestingly enough, a definition of black is African American. And it also means to lose consciousness or memory temporarily. The prophet told us black, according to science, means death. Whatever the case may be, by 1838, the term was wedged into the language as a synonym for Negro. And Negro is just Spanish for black. Thus, Jim Crow laws meant Negro laws. Black codes were passed by certain southern states after the Civil War with the intention of limiting the freedoms of so-called black people. The South developed new laws to create the old slave codes, laws that pretended to so-called protect our people, but in fact restricted their activities. These new black codes were identical to slave codes. In most cases, the word slave was replaced by the word black or Negro. The book Illusion of the Races explains, so degrading among Hispanic people, not accepting Spain itself, were the words Negro, that their uses became limited to slaves because they implicitly signified slavery or social violence. Thus, the free black person was called Moreno and the slave Negro. The book goes on to state, in colonial countries, the expression he is a Negro is equivalent to saying he is a slave. By 1819, a South Carolina judge stated plainly, the word Negro has a fixed meaning. That fixed meaning outlined the legal powers and limits of its possessor. Those defined as Negroes, free or not, had few or no rights at all. The book entitled The Name Negro, Its Origin and Evil Use states, the important thing about a name is the impression which it makes in the minds of others, and the reaction which it invokes through the operation of the laws of association of ideas. The first use of Negro to describe a human can be traced back to 1441, when Portuguese kidnappers operated below the Senegal River, used the term Negro to designate their captives. Slaves falling under the primary designations of black and Negro were references to persons legally transformed into property. The official utilization and legal terminology played a significant role in the oppression of the Moors of America. Official nomenclature illustrated a person's legal and social status in America. This country's legislators would master the careful manipulation of laws and legal jargon. This was a necessary tool and skill for legitimizing the blatant violation of this country's catalytic document, the Declaration of Independence. The use of the terms Negro, black, colored, etc. would be employed with legal precision. 4 so-called black people of South Carolina and their wives actually had to clarify their legal status in the years of 1789, 1790, after they purchased their freedom from slavery. They knew, being identified as Negroes, blacks, and colored folks, they would be subject to the Negro Act and the black codes, which were actually slave laws.
That's right.
Therefore, they had to proclaim their nationality, identifying themselves as Moors, subject to a prince in alliance with this government. By clarifying their legal status as Moors, they were automatically placed under jurisdiction of the longest unbroken treaty between the United States of America and a foreign government. This treaty is known as the Peace and Friendship Treaty between Morocco and the United States of America. Under this treaty, it is illegal for Moors to be placed as chattel property as slaves. Treaties, along with the Constitution, are the supreme law of the land. This group of so-called black people was also known as sundry free Moors. In short, the treaty grants United States of America citizens in Moorish dominions to be protected under the jurisdiction of Moorish imperial authorities and recognized Moors and U.S. territories were to be under the protection and jurisdiction of the Constitution. The sundry free Moors obviously were aware of diplomatic law. Their case is just an example of how you can be free physically and still rob yourself from the precious rights of citizenship through identifying yourself with slave marks of Negro, black, and color. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught us, just being born here doesn't make you a citizen. The Moors' forefathers did not form the slave marks of Negro, black, and color. These inferior names or identities marked the Moors as an inferior class of beings who had to be subjected to slavery. These marks or slave names will forever disqualify and rob Moors from being free people in the true sense or meaning in which free people is used in the Articles of Association, Articles of Confederation, the Declaration of Independence, the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, and the present-day Constitution. The strategy of the plan or conspiracy of the Europeans was used as follows. If the Moors were ever emancipated or set free in the future, the Moors would remain subjugated and dominated by the Europeans that had the sole authority in the classifying system by way of race, with race incorrectly being distinguished as colors such as black race and white race. The Moors would unknowingly forfeit their rights to true citizenship. The slave classifying system was designed just for that purpose. Through this method, the Moors would not have any rights under laws governing free national citizens. The Moors, known illegally as black people, would rob themselves of the precious rights of citizenship by accepting and identifying with the slave marks of Negro, black, and colored, which did not pertain to any nation of people. Now, one may wonder why this information on the act of the First Continental Congress stripping the Moors of their identity is not readily known. The records of the meetings of the First Continental Congress are known as the journals of the Continental Congress. And what you're looking at is a blown up copy of the cover of the journals of the First Continental Congress. And they are the records of the daily proceedings of the Congress as kept by the office of its secretary, Charles Thompson. The journals were printed contemporaneously in different editions and several subsequent reprint editions. However, none of these editions included the secret journals. These were confidential sections of the records which were not published until 1821. This complete edition was published by the Library of Congress between 1904 and 1937. Thus, they were published during the time of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. But today, this is what you'll see with the journals. Show them the other pages.
No.
Keep on going, Mo. You'll see large areas. These are the minutes of the meeting of the First Continental Congress, just blatantly redacted. So it's like, what are you trying to hide? One must note that these secret journals that was published during the time of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. It was reported that George Washington summarized the raging debate on how to perpetuate slavery of the Moors with this statement. If we would agree to take the fezzes and turbans off the Moors' head and remove the sandals from their feet and enforce it with severe punishments, and also to swear a death oath between ourselves to religiously and faithfully not to allow anyone to teach the Moorish children whom they really were or who their forefathers were, and only to allow Moorish children to be taught that they were truly Negroes and black people. That 200 years from today, the Moorish people would not know their nationality nor the national name of their forefathers. And they would also not know from which land or ancestors that they are descended from. Islam Moors. So we stand here today in proof that man plans a plan, and Allah plans a plan. And Allah is the best of planners. Islam Moors. We stand in the manifest destiny of the plan of Almighty God Allah, who sent the holy and divine Prophet Noble Drew Ali to restore our nationality and birthrights, which was stripped from us in the year of 1774. Islam, Moors? Islam. So what we're going to do, we're going to stand in front of this building, take a few photos, go inside, you may make a small purchase, and then we're going to come out and journey to Independence Hall. Islam, Moors? Islam. So let us get in order.
Y'all made me do it, ain't wanna do it. Try to book with y'all and I was going through it. I said hit the streets, they wanna hit the streets, you wanna stay in the temple. Same speech, same talk, same bark, no bite. Well, alright, I'm to Hopkins-Bey and I'ma handle that. My prophet spoke to me, he said handle that. Now I'm front and center, front line. Look at y'all, wanting mine, but it ain't mine, it's God plan, a law plan. Oh man, 2016, all you gonna see is Prophet Noble, Drew Ali. Old Moors, step aside, third and fourth, come on, let's ride. Hey, it's a new day for the
It is clear that Moor was a specific reference to those persons within the dominions of the ancient Moorish Empire. Legally and diplomatically, Moor designated only those persons whose ancestry and allegiance was understood to have been linked to the dominions of the then recognized Moorish Empire. In order to appreciate this point, consider the following example. British is understood to be a general reference for all of those who are subjects under Great Britain. Today, Britain's dominions and inhabitation includes England, Scottish, Ireland, and Wales. Consequently, a person can be both British and Welsh, Scottish, or Irish at the same time. During Britain's imperial days, a British subject even included those persons who lived outside of the British Isles. Anyone born within the stated boundaries of the British Empire were recognized as British subjects. The same historically can be said of the Moorish as it applies to so-called Africans. One could, for example, be Moorish and Mandinka at the same time. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America teaches us what your ancient forefathers were. You are today without doubt or contradiction. The so-called black people of America are Moors, whose forefathers were stripped of their nationality and birthrights in 1774. When one connects with their true nationality, an entire history unfolds. In the case of the so-called black person asserting their true nationality, a vast new history emerges. All throughout our history books, when the subject of slavery comes into view, the song is sung of how all so-called black people were brought over here on slave ships is sung. In our history books, the Native Americans are identified as Indians. The Native Americans, many times in our history books, are classified with the blatant ambiguous term of indigenous person. The truth of the matter is that all so-called black people were not brought over here on slave ships. In fact, most of those who are reclassified as black were subjected to slavery were already here during the pre-Columbian period. The indigenous people, or the Native Americans, were not Indians. The scholar J.A. Rogers enlightened us of the fact that Indi was an ancient Latin word for so-called black people in general. The indigenous people, or Native Americans, were actually Moorish Muslims who spoke Arabic as well as other Asiatic languages, who wore the fez and turban and also carried the names Il and Bey. The Church of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons, actually maintains that Asiatics from the Holy Lands had occupied ancient America. Many Moors came to America by way of the Carthaginian expedition and their memorable excursion to the Great Island after sailing many distant miles from the Pillars of Hercules or the Strait of Gibraltar. The presence of Il and Bey are present among many Native Americans. The Onondaga of the Iroquois nations uses Il both as a title and a family name. The Il tribe is known to be one of the principal Lafa chiefs. In a study by William Beauchamp, the name of a prominent Iroquois man was named Sodus Bey. There exists video documentary of a Mr. Moses Price of Connecticut, Joseph Cinque, Prince of Freedom, as a half-hour video about Joseph Cinque and the Amistad incident produced in 1976, this video presents both artifactual and historical evidence that Cinque's name was actually Sang-Bey. In the video interview, the Hopkins assert that Cinque was called Sang-Bey by his Mindi compatriots. They also point out that even a Connecticut village in which Cinque lived was known as Sang-Bey Park. Columbus knew that there were Moors in this land due to the fact that the captain of his famed ship, the Santa Maria, was Pietro Alonso Nino, a Granadan-born Moor, and his interpreter spoke languages that were spoken predominantly by Moors, such as Arabic, Hebrew, and Chaldean. There were many tribes here in the Americas during the pre-Columbian period who identified themselves as Moors. In fact, one tribe in particular from Delaware, who were known as the Nanticoke. As early as 1797, Europeans described the Nanticoke as darkest in color. These so-called Indian people descend from a man named Anthony, who was described as being a Moor. When researcher C.A. Westlager interviewed these so-called Indians of Delaware, he asked them if they were black or white. Those interviewed responded negatively to both classifications. When he asked them exactly how they classify themselves, they responded, "We are Moors." In fact, the Moors of Chesapeake, Delaware even rejected Nanticoke and Indian as group references. But most importantly, the Delaware Moors and Nanticoke rejected any association with the labels Negro, black, and colored, and felt that many of the adversities experienced were the Creator's way of punishing them for deserting their native institutions. If one does not realize or acknowledge their true Moorish identity, all this groundbreaking history would not have an impact on their life. Now, in regards to the Moorish flag, which is a flag the Prophet taught us is over 10,000 years old. In the original Moorish Guide newspapers, the Prophet says the flag is 50,000 years old. The Moorish flag is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in its center. History records George Washington stating, "I tell no lie that I chopped down my father's cherry tree." The proverbial cherry tree is symbolic of the Moorish flag and nation. The allegorical delineation, "my father," was a reference to the Moroccan Empire at that time under Sultan Sidi Muhammad. The Moorish flag, after being forbidden to fly here in America, was reportedly kept in a secret vault hidden here in Independence Hall. Then moved to New York, the second capital, then to Maryland, and then to Washington, D.C. The Moorish flag remained in the secret vault for over 100 years until the coming of the divine prophet Noble Drew Ali, to whom all honor is due. He retrieved the Moorish flag at that time, and it tried to offer the prophet the Moroccan flag. Because at one point in time, the Moroccan flag was a plain red banner. And let me be clear, the prophet does not ask what kind of flag is the Moroccan. He says, what kind of flag is the Moorish? There is a difference between the Moroccan flag and the Moorish flag. There were various Moroccan flags depending upon who was the ruling dynasty at that time. The Moorish flag is an international flag, embracing a Moorish diaspora all over the world, whether in Jamaica, whether in Haiti, whether in the Dominican Republic. There are Moors globally, but the Moroccan flag embraces the nationals of the Kingdom of Morocco. Islam, Moors. Islam. The denial of use and the hiding of the Moorish flag is significant because it epitomizes the disregard and disrespect that Europeans showed for the Moors, who are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Morocco was the first sovereign nation to recognize the independence of America. Moroccan support was actually needed by fledgling U.S. whose citizenry and merchant ships were no longer under the protection of the British Navy. The U.S. has sought naval protection and assistance from allies such as France, but most French merchants did not want U.S. ships flying under the protection of the French flag. Shortly after America's independence in 1783, the United States failed to pay the taxes to Morocco for use of her waters. The U.S. also failed to answer Moorish emissaries, and the Moroccans responded by detaining a U.S. ship in 1784. This immediately got America's attention. Consequently, the government paid the taxes to Morocco and formally made the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and Ship Signals of the United States and Morocco on June 28 and July 15, 1786, drawn up in Morocco under Thomas Barclay, the U.S. agent to the Moroccan court. Islam Moorish. So once again, we stand in manifest destiny of the plan of Almighty God Allah, who sent the illustrious Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because they had no idea that one day a Moorish flag would be retrieved by none other than the Prophet himself. Islam Moorish. So we honored to fly our Moorish flag, which is over 50,000 years old, right in front of the area in which it was kept in a vault before it was moved to Washington, D.C. Islam Moorish. When we look at that flag, we should see the image of our nation.
That's right.
The points on the star, it represents love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. That's a binding and unifying factor for all Moors. It should evoke a sense of patriotism in you when you see your Moorish flag. Islam Moorish. So at this point in time, Moors, we're going to go to the Liberty Bell.
Same bark, no bite. Well, alright, I'm to Hopkins-Bey and I'ma handle that. My prophet spoke to me, he said, handle that. Now I'm front and center, front line. Look at y'all, wanting mine, but it ain't mine, it's God plan, a law plan. Oh man, 2016, all you gonna see is Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Old Moors, step aside, third and fourth, come on, let's ride. Hey, it's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah. It's a new day for the Moors.
Philly, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, get in the pool.
Hey, it's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah. It's a new day for the Moors.
Kansas City, St. Louis, Detroit, get in the
We
pool.
been visited by a prophet of God, and you mean to tell me we can't go hard? I'm a more of old, the one who rode the elephants over the Alps in the cold. Even went to Spain, rearranged the terrain, even tried to civilize Cain. Now cipher 2016, I'ma show you what this mean. My tassel roll 360. Do you really think you can tell me what to do and say? Do you know I look up the Foreman-Bey? I roll with the prophet, I'm a prophet more. Follow the prophet, so I profit more. Stop it more. I'm holding the world and make me drop it more. Now drop it more. It's a new day for the Moors. It's a new day for the Moors, oh yeah. It's a new day for the Moors.